Hello and welcome to PS4 O'Clock, where this week I'll be talking to Phil Ivanuik about PS4's indie game invasion. Hello, so I am here with Phil.
Hello.
And we're talking about PS4 indie games. We're sort of quite excited for the future, for like lots of small, little, creative, interesting games.
Absolutely, bite-sized little, hour-long or even less chunks of games with, beautiful art and, just sort of simple ideas perfectly executed.
So the first one I think, which is really interesting, is Transistor, which is from Supergiant. They were the guys who made Bastion. So yeah, Transistor looks lovely. It's a kind of turn-based strategy kind of RPG about this woman called Red. She gets like this sword called Transistor. It's described as a powerful talking sword. You sort of have to stop, and you get like action points to attack enemies, and you have to sort of avoid them when you've used up your action points.
Yeah, and Supergiant's a massive name in the indie scene as well.
Yeah.
It's a maybe one of the jewels in the crown, certainly for Sony. And it does look really really beautiful already. So
yeah, and that's out.
Big deal.
The release date for that, is 2014 at the moment. I suspect it will be sort of maybe early sort of 2014, maybe sort of spring. Now, the next game up is kind of looks brilliant in a kind of demented way, and that is Octodad, the Dadliest Catch.
This is maybe my favourite on the list. I love this
because it was part of a student competition, wasn't it? It's a bunch of students that made it. The idea being that you are a secret octopus trying to hide it from your family, and sort of the comedy of it kind of comes from this sort of physics-based control method. Now, I don't know how that's going to translate onto PS4, because on the PC in the original game you sort of had to use the mouse to kind of like stretch and stick your feet around, and the idea was that you sort of barely had control of the character, and you had to keep your suspicion meter down.
Yeah, it's that same kind of idea with Surgeon Simulator. It's sort of purposefully shambolic and purposefully difficult to control, and it's just absolutely hilarious. The theme song in the trailer as well, where someone's singing about no one suspects a thing while you're just barreling through like a hallway in a house or something.
It's just a constant kind of stream of slapstick, isn't it? There's a bit in a supermarket where he just somehow manages to destroy everything from one side of the floor to the other,
and his face is always so completely impervious.
Yes, stoic, kind of like there's nothing wrong here. Now that is going to be out late 2013, early kind of 2014. Now Sony have been bigging up The Witness quite a lot, because obviously they've signed Jonathan Blow, who's the guy behind Braid, and like Supergiant, that's another kind of big signing. It's a bit of a sort of a mystery game, because they're not really sort of showing off that much of it yet. We've seen this sort of beautiful world. We keep seeing these sort of little maze puzzles to be solved, and Jonathan Blow has sort of said that part of the mystery of the game is discovering kind of what the game is about.
Yeah, it's really all I've seen of the puzzles are that same kind of maze. Trace the maze from the start to the end, and it looks like maybe you do it with either the sticks or maybe the touchpad. I can't see it holding my interest if it really is just that and then some exploration. I don't know how it's going to work. I mean, I guess he kind of wants that reaction from people at this point, because he's a fairly sort of divisive figure as well in the indie scene, and I think he's probably aware that some people will be like, this game looks too simple, or it looks too one-dimensional, or something like that. So he's probably got the reaction that he's after, but it looks interesting either way. It
sounds like the idea of it is there's sort of 12 sections on the island, and you have to sort of, each time you complete a section, this sort of turret pops up and shoots a beam of light at the centre, and I think you have to unlock a minimum of 8 in order to get to whatever the sort of the centre part is. And there's also like audio logs scattered around that you can sort of find, and Jonathan Blow sort of said that people will have a different perception of the story depending on sort of how they've approached the game, because they'll unlock different logs in different orders, and there is this sort of this idea that that how you play the game will sort of shape your experience of it. So if it can live up to these sort of almost sort of philosophical kind of things he's sort of suggesting, it could be interesting, or it could just be a lot of mazes.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, he demands quite a lot of the game, doesn't it? In Braid as well. I mean, I can remember him saying that he was really pleased the way it was received, but he was upset that about the things that people picked out of it. They enjoyed it for the wrong reason. So maybe he has this particular way that he wants people to play it. Who knows, we'll find out. So next up we've got Blacklight Retribution, which is probably the nearest to a sort of a AAA kind of game from a sort of an indie developer. It looks really nice, really pretty.
It's interesting. So Blacklight's already been on PS3 once. It was it's like an online only competitive shooter, and this is it's free to play with sort of weapon customization options being sort of bought through microtransactions or being earned in games. Any thoughts? It's weirdly, because it's the most sort of recognisable game, there's almost the least to say about it. It's like it's an online shooter.
You sort of feel like but whereas I have no idea how it will feel to play Octodad, I kind of have an impression of how it will feel to shoot a gun in Blacklight, and it does look good. It looks like a combination of, I guess, Brink. The level design reminds me of Brink a little bit, and then there's like a Battlefield element as well. It looks incredibly deep. Actually, there's a lot of unlockable things you can. I think if you kind of hack a bunch of nodes throughout various maps, then you can unlock things like mechs. and these mechs are like incredibly powerful and quite deep and quite involving, and visually it looks really nice as well. And there's a really nice I mean, I don't want to sing the praises of UIs too much during this, but there's a really great UI.
User interface for the less tech savvy. Okay, so let's move on now to what I think is my favourite, which is Outlast, not Outcast, as I am repeatedly calling it. Or I should say, sorry, Blacklight Retribution will be out end of the year, so sort of launch window kind of time. Yeah. So Outlast, again, that's sort of just dated for 2013. It's a survival horror game by sort of a bunch of people that were the sort of ex-Naughty Dog, ex-Splinter Cell, Ubi, and it's basically like a kind of a found footage horror movie. Basically, you're a journalist that breaks into an asylum that's being used by sort of nefarious mega corporation, and with this camera you sort of can see in the dark. You've got like a night vision thing, and it's just you in this sort of asylum being chased by monsters and trying to find out why dead people are hanging from the ceilings, and what bad things have happened.
Yeah, and it's really exciting that you're looking through a camera all the time rather than looking down the barrel of a gun at everything. And so it reminds me of a Clock Tower. Like you're running away.
Yeah, there's no combat.
Out. Like hiding under a bed at one point, and then they come right at you. And I guess they look sort of like aliens.
You don't know. Yeah, they've got this weird sort of crackle kind of skin thing. You don't know what this corporation's been doing with the inmates of the asylum.
Yeah, but it looks like a really interesting. I mean, actually, from the brief snatches of gameplay that they've let out, it looks really, really well paced. Like, I mean, you can tell that there's some ex-AAA devs on there. It looks, like a very safe pair of hands putting it all together. So yeah, very exciting game.
And talking about like creative ideas as well, it looks like a AAA kind of game. It doesn't look like a sort of an indie game, but it's obviously the kind of idea, no weapons, no sort of confrontation, running away, hiding. It's the kind of idea that would probably be quite hard to pitch to one of the bigger publishers.
Yeah, you couldn't have a man with a gun on the box, so you're screwed.
Just a man holding like a Sony Handycam. Okay, after that we've got Primal Carnage Genesis, which is kind of Jurassic Park the shooter. Basically, you're on an island overrun by dinosaurs. The interesting thing with this is it will be episodic, and the idea being that each episode will introduce new dinosaurs. There'll be new player mechanics. The developers sort of said that they want 2 to 3 new features that will define each episode.
If the game itself is evolving over the episodes, that's a really great idea, and presumably they'll get a bit of feedback each time, and they can sort of push the mechanics in the right direction. Yeah. So that could be really interesting.
And I think it does. I mean, one of the problems I think as well with episodic content is with something like a shooter. Once you've played an hour of that shooter, you sort of know what the shooter's going to be like next time and next time. Like, so you say, if it does evolve and change, it could be quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see how flexible they can be. They're sort of talking about all these sort of new locations and this sort of evolution, and it will also use the touchpad as well. One of the examples they've given is that there's sort of a mini game where you sort of have to squiggle on a touchpad to hack security panels.
Probably have to fill in a maze, don't you?
Probably have to fill in a maze, yeah. Okay, well let's round up a few more. We've got a couple of little short games. So we've got Secret Ponchos, which is a kind of an online top-down shooter. It's kind of cowboys. It looks like a bit like a top-down kind of Team Fortress 2. Each got lots of different comedy characters. They've all got their own sort of different abilities. One of the things it does is that players, when they're doing well, will get a bounty on their heads, and then sort of the other players can, if they want, sort of posse up and go after the bounted player, or not. They could just go after him by themselves. But that looks more like sort of, I think, what people expect indie-wise, like a little sort of throwaway kind of top-down shooter. It's that sort of calling all cars, smash TV, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's actually a bit Diablo 3 as well in its visual. I mean, obviously it's like a Wild Western theme, but the viewpoint and the again, it looks really pretty. If it can generate a nice persistent online community, then people can get hone their skills and get some high level players out of it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting
to see
if
a long-term project.
If you do get one of these sort of one of these little games does suddenly blow up and get like a massive following,
segueing incredibly into the next game.
Don't Starve. It's basically like a resource management survival game where you have to like find wood and make fires and build traps, and
you just have to immediately try and sort of scavenge enough things to survive the night. You dig up all around you and you get things like turf and then a bit of wood and then some flint. You can make an axe. And then a bit longer, you can make like wood panels, make a bit like Minecraft, I guess.
Now, we've got another one called Galaxy, as in Galaxy, with the worst spelling in the world ever.
With a Z.
This looks pretty simple. I mean, this is basically just like a top-down retro shooter, so it looks like a proper old, looks like kind of Galaga, Space Invaders, that kind of thing.
R-Type.
R-Type, yeah, but it's top-down, it's open world, and it's a kind of a physics-based sort of thing going on where you're swinging, rotating your ship, and there's like inertia as you fire the engine, so it looks like there's a sort of a challenge element to simply manoeuvring the ship. But in the demos I've seen, there's things whizzing around firing bullets out.
It looks very, very difficult. Yeah, very difficult indeed. And it's kind of like that bullet hell thing as well.
Yeah, bullet hell mixed with kind of geometry wars, almost that kind of control scheme of zipping around. And another quite retro sort of themed game is Mercenary Kings, which is from the guys who did Scott Pilgrim, which was Tribute Games. This is it's that kind of like Contra side-scrolling kind of platformer. It's really sort of cutesy kind of art, and multiplayer, which is interesting.
Yeah, I guess it looks like a co-op multiplayer.
Yeah, I guess so.
Versus. Yeah. The really cool thing about this one is that you craft your own weapons. So each enemy drops like a little treasure chest. Inside that there might be just one part from a gun. You collect them all throughout a level, and then you can sort of create anything from like a shotgun up to a assault rifle, everything like that. It's like a Borderlands meets Contra thing, and I still play Contra now, so I'm super pumped for one on PS4. That'd be amazing.
Next up we've got Oddworld Abe's Odyssey New and Tasty, which is by Just Add Water. It's a complete from scratch remake,
so new engine, everything like that.
Yeah,
I've got extremely fond memories of it. I could probably play through the first level from memory, so that's really exciting. If the sound is exactly the same, then I'm completely on board. They can't mess around with the sound.
No, from what I've seen, they've got exactly the same voices. The trailer even ends the same way, where someone kind of goes, hello Abe, and then there's a little fart, and then they all giggle at each other.
Hey there, Abe.
Which brings us to our last game, Raise the Dead, and that's Ray apostrophe S, as in Ray is in possession of the dead, not raising the dead.
I think they should rename it Ray is in possession of the dead. It's a catchy one.
Now this is the sort of thing that looks a bit more like your kind of almost like your mobile kind of tablet style gaming. It's a sort of a tactical zombie game. For reasons that aren't explained at the beginning of the game, you have a light bulb screwed into the top of your head, which lets you control other zombies, and sort of the things it's been likened to are Pikmin or Overlord. So you have to sort of direct different zombie types around and control them in a sort of real-time strategy kind of a way.
It looks very satisfying too, because you go up and dig up corpses basically, don't you, and then that becomes a zombie, and you get a horde together. You set them on like security guards, just helpless little security guards that are patrolling in the graveyard, and you get them to sort of mash down gates and things like that.
The interesting thing there really is you've got such a wide breadth of different games. We've got sort of retro shooters, we've got ghost stories, we've got sort of lovely arty RPGs, straightforward kind of AAA shooters. There's a lot of kind of content there that's going to be coming through this sort of self-published, I'm guessing sort of low-priced sort of channel.
Absolutely. It's cool to see how indie's evolving as well, because it used to always be the kind of the retro art style like Mercenary Kings, really really throwback gameplay and everything, and there's games on that list that are, as you say, are closer to a AAA shooter. They just don't have the big names attached to them. So very encouraging.
And I guess as well freed from the sort of limitations maybe of having to produce, say, an 8, 10, 12 hour game, with DLC, with whatever. They're not beholden to a publisher, so they can make what they want. So if someone did want to make a game like, say, Home, which is a PC and iPad game, it lasts like an hour. If someone wanted to do that, they can. And I think PS4 will benefit from it, and will be better off kind of creatively, and sort of with inspirational kind of sources for other game makers.
Absolutely, these ideas will probably trickle down into the AAAs eventually. A year down the line.